All right, we're live everywhere. What's going on? What's going on, everybody? How have you been, Mick? It's been a long time since we've actually talked.
I'm doing good, man. Just wrapping up the weekend here.
Nice. Yeah, I just got back into town today from the wedding I went to yesterday. It's been a crazy couple of days. And then it's been a crazy week. You know, our third daughter, Ophelia, she was born on Tuesday. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome, dude. I saw you sent me the video, and I'm happy for you guys, bro.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks. How are your kids? How are everything on your end?
Doing good. We went to the zoo yesterday. If you guys see me like doing a crack dance, it's because there's mosquitoes out in this motherfucker. I'm in the garage, so. But yeah, we went to the zoo. That was fun, and it just, it went by real fast.
Right? Yeah, man, that's usually how it goes. So to jump right into it, man, last week I saw this article and I meant to do something on it then, but it was just so crazy. Wells Fargo's is banning SCX workers' bank accounts, terminating their accounts. And I think that is a really good sign for the future.
What do you mean, like if they're like getting paid from OnlyFans or something?
Yeah, so let's look up the article. Sex workers, Wells Fargo. So it says, sex workers say Wells Fargo shut down their bank account, destroying our livelihoods. Wells Fargo's has inexplicably terminated the bank accounts of several high-profile individuals in the sex industry, one of whom took to Twitter and slammed the bank for the move. I don't vouch chats. I've never done anything bad with my account. I don't have fraud alerts or chargebacks, blah, 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 blah. She's an adult performer who is the president of the Adult Performance Artists Guild, said in a tearful Twitter video that was posted on Friday. So it looks like they're just targeting sex workers. So good for them. Bully on Wells Fargo, extremely based. We're heading in the right direction. First, they ban Andrew Tate. Whoop, whoop. And now they're going to start banning sex workers. There we go.
Yeah, and pretty soon if you vote for the wrong person, you might get banned too.
Just don't vote.
Yeah, I guess. Well, what if they ban you if you don't vote? What if that's one of the things? If they're like, you're not voting, that's bad citizenry, and you're not...
Yeah, I doubt that.
You're not doing your part to society,
Yeah, I highly doubt that. But no, man. So
does it go into like exactly what was going on? I mean, were they like using OnlyFans, or were they just?
No, it doesn't say anything about.
How do they find out if the money's for sex trafficking? That's kind of crazy.
Well, it's not sex trafficking, but because they see where their money's coming from. They say where the money, like where the check's from.
What, some guy named John Doe, and so they're like sex work. That's why I'm just wondering. Like, do they write on the check like sex work? Like,
no,
how are they finding this out?
They just write the company's name down, and then you can see what company is doing what.
So maybe it was like an adult film company or something.
Yeah, that's what it said. She's the president of Adult Film Guild, but her bank account terminated.
That was Wells Fargo?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. So they didn't like steal their money or anything. They just canceled their bank account.
Yeah. And then there was another one right here. It says Spike Iron and Sophie Marie, a married couple who jointly run the Las Vegas-based pornographic production company Yummy Girl Studios, told Rolling Stones magazine that they, too, were informed by Wells Fargo that their account would be decommissioned effective October 13th. That's dope. I think that's a really good sign for the future. Oh my God, after 30 seconds, my brain cells feel like they're lost. Okay. So Executive Order 1403 is a Democratic power grab. Dude, get out of the left-right paradigm. Get out of it. So, yeah.
You know what he's talking about, though, right?
I don't.
Digital currency thing or whatever.
No, I had no clue.
supposedly, well, it's like something everybody's talking about. There's like this executive order that Biden signed a while ago, and it's going to bring in a digital currency, like a U.S. digital dollar.
Okay.
Like I I haven't looked into it personally. People have been talking about it like crazy, and it seems like nobody really knows what the hell's going on. It's probably like some huge long document. That's why.
Gotcha.
But people are paranoid about it. Some people say it's coming in at the end of this year. Some people say maybe not till 2025. I don't know. Tap the screen, guys. Give us some likes.
Yeah. So somebody just said that. I mean that there was a study that shows women are happier when they're single. Yeah, I don't believe that. I mean, look at the mental health rate of women declining over the past, 2 decades, 3 decades. It's insane. More women are on drugs now to combat their mental health issues than ever. So studying and testing it, yep. And also, where are the studies coming from? I mean, you don't need to have a study to say that women are not happier today than they were back in the 40s and 30s, or in any country right now that promotes it. That is marriage. But yeah, so I think that Wells Fargo realizes that, faith is being restored in America through a right-wing population, a right-wing demographic who is like, yeah, let's get rid of porn, let's get rid of sex workers, and let's make America moral again. I think that they see that there's a wave coming.
Mama, make America moral again.
Yeah, there we go. Digital currency. I think you mean you can tap your card in order to pay for something. Okay. I mean, we already have digital currency, but that isn't what he's talking about. So no one wants it because it's regulated by the gov, and crypto beauty is NGO. Okay. Morals vary. No, there's objective morals in the world. There's a morality code that we can all agree to. And the morality code that we all agree to right now is a very Christian moral code in America, in the West.
So I don't even think I told you this, but whenever I did a stream, what was it? Not last night, but the night before, it was Friday evening. One of the topics was the dollar is doomed. And I had like 5 people on there, all of different background, different races and ethnicities and genders. And every single one of them agreed that the dollar's in big trouble. Thought that was pretty interesting. That's consumer sentiment right there.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, eventually the dollar will fail. Can you give me those facts, like where you read them? Yeah, dude, just look at the morality of the United States of America. It was built upon Christian principles. I mean, we can have the argument that Freemasonry was the religion or philosophical belief of the founders, but ultimately, if you just look through the history, America has been a very Christian nation in a lot of ways, and our morality set is murder. That's a very Abrahamic thing. Like, people think that this is like some well-known thing that murder's bad, but they lack. No, I ask where you read them. Just look at the morality of the United States, bro. You don't need to be an empiricist to understand this. You just look at this.
You got to read a news article to figure out what morality is? Like, what the hell?
Yeah, like, dude, I mean, look, people in America say that murder is bad. They don't think that, rape should be legal or any of these things, right? And people want to say that, oh, well, that's just common sense. It's not, because a ton of pagan religions way before Christianity said that those things were good. Like, Christianity kind of revolutionized morality in that way. Abrahamic religions revolutionized morality in that way. So, yeah, I mean, you just open your eyes. Cryptocurrency will never be a real digital money. The platform is using tech they don't even own. What do you mean it won't be a real digital currency? It literally is digital money. Literally.
Yeah, crypto's been going pretty sideways for like a couple months now.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of volatility like there used to be.
there will be again, though. I mean, this is a bear market. This is what you expect. Bear markets do this shit. So it's just, I mean, if you're a trader, it kind of sucks to be you.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so I think that that's pretty huge about Wells Fargo. And I think that we're going to see a lot of companies do this. And I feel that a lot of these sex workers are going to be ostracized by financial institutions. And then a lot of people are going to start not supporting them. I feel like the general population, I don't think will support them much longer. I feel like there's a huge shift coming in the next few years. A lot of people are waking up, man. Like there's this huge movement. There's this huge movement of men who are like, no more porn.
Yeah, I think that people are starting. A lot of people, think that it's stupid. It's pointless. Like there's nothing good comes from it.
Right.
And like when you actually question people about it and ask them their thoughts on it, I'm pretty sure almost everybody will say that nothing good comes from it. And do you really want your kids watching that shit? You know what I'm saying? And all of them will say no. So most of them, I mean, I'd be surprised if I asked anybody and they say yeah.
Right. And then we got right here, this guy says, morals vary, it's facts, not an opinion. No, that is an opinion. It's not fact. There are objective morals. There are things that everybody who isn't completely demonic can say is wrong. Unaliving a baby. Very, very bad. Very, very bad. Unless you're demonic, pagan of some sort. Then I think that we'll agree on that. Doing inappropriate things to little children, I think we can all agree that those things are morally bad. I think stealing is morally bad. I think these are all things that we can agree upon.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, random numbers and letters. Gotta love it.
Right? What's going on?
What up?
I'm not gonna lie, it depends on the type of person you are, but I personally believe that being single or dating is leagues better than marriage.
Why?
Especially in this country.
Why?
You as a man literally have to ask why.
Yeah,
you
why?
Really have to ask that? Yeah, because, okay, let's say if it don't work out, you are more likely to have to give up half of what you've built on your hard work and your pain and suffering. She doesn't have to give up anything. You're more likely to have to give that up.
Well, that's not really the case anymore. You do know that, right?
I feel like a legal marriage is dumb.
Why?
You can have the same amount of love in dating or just being single on your own without needing to marry somebody legally.
Okay, so why is it dumb? You just said you feel like legal marriage. First off, the first thing you said is not entirely true anymore. There's a lot of men. No, you got to let me finish. I'll let you finish. So this is actually very true what I'm saying. You can look it up. A lot of women are actually having to pay for men. You have to give up half of their shit because we're promoting this hyper feminism where it's like, yo, go be a boss bitch. Go get that dollar, bae. Go do all this shit. And now a lot of women are making more money than men. And so those men who are stay-at-home dads because they're cucks, those men who are not making as much money as their wife and they end up getting divorced, guess what? The man is getting a lot of money from the woman. This is happening very, very much today. All right. Okay. Secondly, okay. Second thing, hang on. Second thing, why is legal marriage dumb?
Because I don't see the point in it.
What point? Like, what do you mean? What point don't you see?
I don't see the point of having to have the government in your personal relationship business.
Why do you have the government in your paycheck?
Like, I don't see the point. in that.
But you have the government in your driver's license. You have the government in your birth certificate. You have the government in your paycheck. You have the government when you rent something. You have the government when you buy a house. You have the government when you buy a car. You have the government when you drive on the roads.
Whenever you're married, it does help, like, for like medical stuff too. Like if something happens to you, you know, your wife can help make decisions and shit like that. Whereas if you're just like dating someone, there might be some legal loopholes to jump through. That's all I had to say. If he can hear us or what. You stay there, bro?
No, you guys lack like these responses are so low IQ. Nobody is saying that the government is God. All I'm saying is the argument to not get the government involved in marriage because you don't like the government being involved in your life is very nonsense, because the government's a big part of your life, whether you accept it or not, and you don't even acknowledge it. So it's a very bad argument to say. It doesn't even make sense.
Hello, Kaylee.
Hey, yeah, I think when it comes to the whole marriage thing, being legally married is just very overrated nowadays.
Why do you say that?
A piece of paper ain't stopping nobody from making any decision they want to make.
Yeah, but it should.
But it doesn't.
It used to.
My marriage, it didn't change anything.
Yeah, well, I think a big part of this has to do with no-fault divorce. I mean, that's totally diluted marriage as a whole. Now there's no consequences for the person that you marry. Also, there's a lack of morality. And as far as the piece of paper goes, it's more so symbolic than anything. And it's supposed to have a psychological and spiritual effect on the couple as opposed to a legalistic effect. So all of those things have gone away, and that's because we're lacking morality as a society. But the way people are living their lives, I believe, are changing. The divorce rates are going down. They've been going down consistently. And I think, I mean, you are seeing less people get married, but that's not a good thing. That's actually a sign of a declining empire. It's one of the signs of a declining empire, actually, if you look through that.
I'm getting married again since my divorce, but I'm not going to be doing a legal marriage. It's just going to be a cultural marriage. So at the end of the day, if I decide I want to change my last name in a year or two, then I can change my last name if I want to.
So you're afraid of commitment?
Oh, I'm not afraid of commitment.
So why don't you want to make the commitment to change your last name right away?
Because I already was dodged once.
Okay, so yeah, there's a fear of commitment there. So why get married?
Oh no, I'm fine with commitment. I'm not the person that had the issue last time. Last time he left 2 weeks later and went and did his own thing. So my thing is, sure, we'll make it last a year, and then I'll go through the changing my name and changing everything I have to change.
Well, then why not just wait a year then?
Exactly.
It works out. Like, what's the point of acting like you're getting married and then like a year later you're gonna actually officially do it, or what?
Oh no, because like I said, like I got married and 2 weeks later. You think I got married to the guy right away? I was with him for 3 years.
No, we're talking about the new marriage that you just said that you're getting into.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, we both agreed on doing it the way that we want to do it, and we both agreed to it.
But why even do a cultural marriage? But why not even do a cultural marriage if you're not already going to commit to like changing your last name and becoming one?
Like I said, we just don't feel like signing a piece of paper is going to change it.
No. Why even do like a pretend marriage if like you're not actually going to commit to like the whole thing?
Well, no, we're committing to being together, but we just don't see the point in signing the documents.
Okay. I think that either he doesn't want to commit or you don't want to commit, or it's mutual.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you guys go ahead and do your own thing.
It sounds very strange.
I think marriage is good, and
marriage is a beautiful thing.
You know, I do see what the argument is, though. You know, like not having the government in there and shit. Like there is some overreach, but there's benefits to that shit too. Like I was saying to the last guy, if what happens if you get into a car accident and you need someone to then he's not going to be able to help make decisions and shit, right?
Well, I'm in Canada. In Canada, yeah, you can. You just make them your head person. Like, for instance, right now it's my cousin. It's not my mom. Normally, it follows under your parents. But since I'm old enough to make my own decision, it falls under my cousin because I trust my cousin with my life more than my parents, sadly. But
why don't you trust your soon-to-be husband with your life more than anybody?
I think we haven't really discussed that because we haven't it's not very often.
What? Then why are you guys getting pretend married if you haven't discussed those things?
Well, no, at this point in time, we haven't done it. How often do I go to the hospital? Never.
I don't plan on dying anytime soon, but my wife knows what to do with me when I die.
Well, that's eventually going to happen.
Yeah, you should definitely talk about that shit. You got to try and figure that out. But we're giving marriage advice right now. MOT marriage advice.
Well, it's definitely just better than being single, and it's definitely better than dating, and it's definitely better than pretending to be committed to somebody. It's the cornerstone of nations. It's the cornerstone of society. This is something that's so innate in humanity. If we go back to hunter-gatherers, most people want to believe that hunter-gatherers were polygamous. That's not true, actually. The first evidence that we have for hunter-gatherers is that they were very monogamous, and they did have their own kind of marriage ceremony. So this is something that's very innate to human nature, but now it's being subverted, and I think it's because we have a culture that is afraid of commitment and is afraid of the future.
Well, you gotta understand, there's also a lot of trauma that's happened within the last 150 years. I'm talking about at least Canada, for people being raised up and stuff, and horror stories of somebody accusing somebody during a marriage and then going to court and having to give up all their shit and all that. But like you said, I don't know if that works here in Canada, but the no fault policy or whatever. But I could understand why people would be getting less and less wanting that. Plus, it's not, one person brings home the bread, the other one takes care of the household anymore. It's very impossible to live that way.
It isn't. It's very possible.
Oh, well, I'm doing it. I understand that. I'm a mom. I stay at home with 2 kids, and I have a man that works full time. But a lot of women nowadays aren't into that.
They are. They're just not confident enough in their men.
I could see that.
That's the issue. The men are pussies.
Yeah, I guess it's hard to find somebody who actually wants to get up and work for a living.
Yeah, or put in the extra work to raise their family. That's the big issue. And a lot of men.
Right? You have a lot of.
Go ahead.
You have more kids growing up in daycares and stuff like that, and being raised by other people than being at home raised with their family's morals and beliefs and stuff like that too, which play a factor too.
Yeah, daycare shouldn't be. That's my opinion. I know that everybody's situation's different. I don't think that daycares or schools should be raising your kids. I think that the ultimate goal for a couple is to have the wife stay home, raise the children, because she's the best provider and nurturer for the children. There's nobody better than the mother to do that, and so a lot of families fail in that regard, but I can't judge anybody. We've been very fortunate in our circumstances for the past few years, but I get it that it's tough to make those decisions now, but this is, I believe, the goal everybody should have as a family, and I think it makes your family much stronger. And I also wanted to add that men too are lacking a sense of manhood. They're not even men. Men are still boys today. I know men that are 20 years old and still call themselves kids. I literally talked to a grown-ass man who's 22 years old, and he was like, I'm just a 22-year-old kid trying to do this. And I'm like, motherfucker, you're a man. You're a man.
Yeah, but he's not doing man things.
Does he have a pacifier?
Right. 20 years old is a kid? No, it's not. That's insane. If you go back 300 years and you call a 20-year-old a kid, That's insane. You can call a 14-year-old boy was more of a man than a 26-year-old man is today.
Yep. There was no room to have excuses, though, back then.
They're like, I gotta go
Right.
home and play Call of Duty with my friends.
Right. I literally saw this video today of some dude. He's some jack dude, really good. You know, he's really good in shape, and he had his he was at some party at some boardwalk, you know, like I don't know, doing something with his boys, and he had one of these street interviews, and the guy asked him if he had any girlfriends, and he looked like a dude that could easily get girls if he wanted to, and he was like, no, I'm too busy, you know, leveling up in this video game. I can't remember what video game he said, but he was trying to become like a platinum or some shit in the video games online mode, and I was like, what the like. Why? Like, you're probably not going to make money from it. Like, if he was a professional esport athlete, that's different. But
Maybe
you're not
the
even
side
that.
effects of the steroids are messing with his
Could be, man.
body.
Could be. But hey, Kelly, we have a couple other people that want to come in. Thank you very much for coming on. We only allow one person at a time, so it just makes things a lot easier. So hopefully things go well in your relationship, and hopefully you don't have a pretend marriage. But have a great night. All right, Mayor of Social Media is next.
Actually, bro, you know, I'm going to get off here. I'm going to go spend some time with my wife. She just got done laying the kids
All right,
down.
man.
So,
Sounds good.
hope you guys have a fantastic evening and a great rest of your weekend, and I'll be listening here shortly.
All right, bro. Take care.
Peace.
I was wondering what that was. You and him had the exact same
icon.
Yeah. MOT News and MOT Today are both of our TikTok channels, but MOT Media.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, MOT Media is our company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool.
So.
Yeah. Are y'all on TikTok only, or y'all on
Everywhere? We're on YouTube. We're on Twitter, Twitch, everywhere, man.
Cool. I'll follow you. Matter of fact, let me do that.
Thank
now.
you.
I'll
And
start
then for
checking
everybody
out
in here, like asking, what did I do mainly today? Well, you know, I worked on a farm earlier today after driving 4 hours from Michigan to get my family some raw milk. And then what else did I do? I relaxed a little bit because, you know, I fucking worked all day Saturday, drove to Michigan for a good friend of mine's wedding. And then I came here and worked for like about 2 hours, you know, on my day off. This is technically my day off. So anyway, what's going on, Mayor of Social Media?
Yeah, I just jumped in a little while ago, but everything I heard, it's like, how can somebody defend the things they defend? And then I remember that they're groomed into this from an early life, whether it be the TV, whether it be the school. I don't know if you saw the comments with me and someone else. He said, no, that's not true. And what I said was that they're being groomed into thinking that masculinity is toxic when you were talking about the men's side.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, they're teaching that some. Well, they're teaching it. And it's not their business to teach it, just like it's not their business. Well, we're 47 in the world now in education. This is the first time in history, or our history, that this generation is not as smart as their parents. That just came out in the news the other day. And it's because we're focused on the wrong things. Commitment is really what we were talking about before, or what I was listening to when it comes to marriage. It's a commitment. They have been groomed, and I'm not blaming them. I'm blaming their parents and their parents' parents. And it's really been an agenda for about the past 40 years from the government. And I work with all your big institutional investors. These institutional investors are the ones pushing the agenda. It's all money motivated. The politics, the law, the legal side of it, the schools, the science, all of it is money motivated. So while we're all against each other, they're laughing all the way to the bank because they are making money off of our indifferences. But what they did was they started by breaking down half of society. And the way that they did that was teaching them that a commitment is not important. Your feelings are more important than a commitment. That's why the number one reason for divorce now is not abuse. It's not starvation. It's not anything else. The number one reason is because they didn't feel loved anymore. We just grew apart.
Yeah.
That's the number one reason. Number one excuse. I've got a friend that works at a huge, organization, which I won't name, but that's what they are. They're counselors. And these counselors, take their notes and they compile the data. And the data is that is the number one reason. I didn't feel.
Yeah, man. I think that, well, and this whole idea of marrying for love is a relatively new concept as well.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
You should be marrying for more than love. I've been married to my wife for, I don't know, let's see, we got married in 2017.
Well, hold on,
so
let me stop.
it's like 5
one
years.
Second, if you don't mind. I've always been taught that, and I'm not being a hypocrite here. I felt that marriage is tough. I don't care what you know. But the bottom line is I didn't know the stuff I'm saying until it was too late. Had I known it, it probably would have made a bigger impact. But love is a decision. When you say I love you, you're making a decision. It's not just, and the feelings come from your decision, not the other way around.
Yeah, I mean, and love is something that isn't I don't feel like love is consistent. I feel like you have to work at your love, especially if you have a long-term relationship. Not that the love isn't like naturally there. Like obviously,
yes,
I naturally
always there, and the feelings are up and down.
Exactly. Like I love my wife, but there are times where the emotions, it's kind of hard to articulate. But it's never like I don't love my wife, but the feelings that I may feel at the height of our love may not be there necessarily, a month from now because we're hitting like a downward period in our relationship or something. Because life is filled with ebbs and flows, and marriages are a part of life. Therefore, there's going to be ebbs and flows in marriages, but the love will remain there. You just have to work for it. And this is something that I feel is ruining marriages and ruining relationships, is saying that you have to be in it for the love. Like the reason my wife and I will never get a divorce has to do more so with the fact that we have 3 children together. We're building a life together. We have long-term goals and what we're going to achieve, and then we're going to pass things down to our children. We want to be able to have a, be a powerful unit for our grandchildren in the future, right? So there's numerous reasons why you don't get a divorce.
Again, that commitment comes out of your love for each other.
Yes, I mean,
there's different types of love. There's, what you're talking about, which is a commitment. There's the love between a husband and a wife, that is really what you're talking about. And then there's your friendly love, and you've got the different forms of love, which all come from the Greek, but whether it be phileo love or agape love. Or whatever the case. But me, and people in the comment section, they have their right to live their life the way they want, believe in who or what they want to. I believe in a supreme being, and that supreme being is where I get my information from, and it seems to be correct, and it works. I mean, I can look at things and see this all makes sense. Of course, people fight against it. People are rebellious in general. They want to be in control. They want to be the supreme being. They think that they're enough, and that's okay. They're entitled to that. That's called religion, and that's why I laugh when people start talking about religion, because religion, the actual definition of religion is the belief in a supreme being, whether that be you, whether it be science, whether it be Mother Nature, whether it be a volcano, whatever your God is, that's your supreme being. Sorry, I didn't mean to take over there.
No, it's all good, man. It's all good. Yeah, I mean, really, I feel that there needs to be a shift, and I think that there will be a shift. Or else America as a society is going to crumble. I already think it already is crumbling, and I don't think there's any saving it. But the rebuilding of America, one of the cornerstones of the rebuilding, I believe, it will have to be marriages. And this is something that a lot of people are against, and that's because they've had so many bad examples in their lives because, boomers, Gen X's have just fucking horrible examples of marriages, like totally materialistic, totally vain, and
Agree.
And also at the height of promiscuity as well. Like, we think that this generation is very promiscuous, but a lot of Gen Zers aren't even interested in having intimate relationships. So the promiscuity was much higher in like boomer times, Gen X time, than it is now, because a lot of people just aren't doing it. They just aren't having intimacy with other people. And so just the things that were witnessed in a lot of people's childhood is distorted their view of a relationship. But I believe that there's going to be a renaissance in relationships to the point where people will be inspired to have kids now. We already see in families, we're already seeing this turn at the moment. It's more of a right-wing internet meme movement, but it's taking place where a lot of young men are deciding, I don't want to watch porn. I don't want to, hook up with a bunch of girls. I want to have my own house. I want to be out of debt. I want to have my own wife. I want to have my own family. Like, these are things that a lot of young men are now gravitating towards. And I feel like this is going to be a huge movement.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you're saying. I mean, couldn't disagree at all. We're in a society now to where it's a you hurt my feelings society, and I'm rebellious on top of it. Everything's based on feelings. My family left me. My family got a divorce. I'm mad at my dad. I'm mad at my mom. It's all feelings. Mm-hmm. And when you get a whole society to where they can do that, you can get them to do anything you want to. And I'll prove it through this. We saw J6, and we saw the BML movements. We saw the Summer of Love movement. We saw Occupy Wall Street movement. We see these hate groups on both sides. How do you get all those groups together? You don't get it over logical facts. You get it over boosting people's emotions. And this society is so butthurt and so easy to control. You could get them to off anybody you wanted to. I mean, that's what we've become. We've become a society that has no anchor. We are literally anchored to driftwood.
Yeah, no, that's very true, man. There's no roots. Our roots have been extracted long ago. And I just wanted to address a comment here. Gen Z needs to catch up and start innovating things as well. What innovation do Gen Z have? Great question. My response to that would be the average IQ has been dropping precipitously for many of years. That's why you see a lack of innovation per capita in Generation Z and millennials. Like, it's because the IQ is going down, man. That's why you're not seeing innovation. It has nothing to do with, necessarily Gen Z being lazy or anything. They're not as smart as their ancestors.
Anything you say, there's always going to be a naysayer in here, but I'm going to answer one up to. Person said, feelings are good with a smiley face. Feelings are good if they come from the right place. Feelings are bad if they come from a destructive force. Mm-hmm. I can feel good by taking drugs. And the next thing I'm going to do is blow my heart out 6 months later because I take too many, because it becomes more and more and more addictive. Yeah, it depends on what your source is and what your root is.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, hey, man, I got somebody else that wants to hop in here. I really do appreciate you coming up. It's always good to be able to speak with somebody that agrees for the most part. Usually there's a lot of disagreement, which is fine. Hey, what's going on?
Good. Sorry, not sure if I can hear you right now. Can you say something?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, perfect. You just weren't talking, I guess. I don't know if I agree completely about this feelings being bad and everything. I think there's a degree to which people can make decisions based on feeling and not think through future action. But I think in general, the fact that we're thinking more about how people are feeling in situations leads to better outcomes for people. Is it used as an excuse? Absolutely. But I think of like Greatest Generation coming home from World War II, and you hear stories about everyone's grandparents. It's like they didn't tell you anything about the war. They just left it in. They didn't say anything. Were they married 50 years? Was that guy married 50 years to his wife? Yeah. Did he talk to her ever? Almost never. They're strangers living together.
Well, you don't know that. That's a broad generalization, is it not?
But it happened a lot.
How do you know that?
It's a broad generalization to say that Gen Z just, operates totally based on feelings too, because you see kids who want to be influencers instead of doctors, when there's more kids in college now than there ever has been. Some sure. Some
yeah, and what does that say about college,
though? A lot of them are in medical school too. So I can't, we have to think about that. Feelings there's a reason we have them. There's a reason that you get gut feelings about certain situations, and it tells us something. And like he said, with those movements, it's absolutely true that people can just look at a situation and feelings based. They know something's wrong, and that does make them easy to influence. But that gut feeling that people have that something's wrong, whether with society, whether with a person they're married to, I don't think that feeling's the problem. It's the solutions that are presented to people that are the problem. Because if people know something's wrong, like life's not fair, they've been fed this idea that, they get a job. If they work really hard at it, they can have a house and a wife and a kid and the American dream. And then when they realize it's not happening for them, they know something's wrong. They get that feeling. And what do they do with that feeling? And that's where people can prey on that feeling, but they're not wrong to have that feeling. And wanting to do something based on that feeling isn't wrong either.
Yeah, so
it's based on a reality that, inflation's going up.
Right.
The cost of living's going up, and your dollar doesn't buy more than it used to. You used to be able to work off one income and buy a house in a city and watch it appreciate and retire off that savings. And that's not really the case for a lot of places in the U.S. anymore, in North America anymore.
So pretty much everything you're saying, I agree with. I am not opposed to feelings. Feelings are a good indicator of, how, what's going on in your internal world, what's going on in your external world. They're good to sense reality in a way. But the issue is, I believe, is what he was trying to say, and I would agree with him on this, is that we are filtering there's a generation that's essentially filtering, and I'm a Gen Z. I'm Gen Z, by the way. So there's a generation that is filtering their reality through their feelings more so than their rational mind. But there's a lot of downside to it. And I think that that's the big issue. Right now, we're moved and manipulated a lot easier because if it's emotionally appealing, we'll gravitate towards it, even if it makes no logical sense. And if it doesn't make logical sense, that means that you probably shouldn't do it on a societal level, because it won't last very long, because it's just not coherent. But if it feels good, right? There's this whole meme culture, on 4chan, Twitter, forums and shit. Feels good, man. That's why I do it. It feels good, right? So a lot of people do things off of feelings in a negative way. Feelings can be good. Like, I'm married. I have 3 children. I feel very excited to be a father once again. My wife just gave birth to another child. this past Tuesday. So like I felt great. Like that's a great feeling. Thank you very much. It's a great feeling. It's a great feeling I just came home from a trip. I went to, a wedding for one of my good buddies up in Michigan, came back today. It felt good to come home. So like feelings aren't bad, but the issue is that when you filter most of your reality through the lens of feelings, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to say about like to reel in that last conversation was just about the idea of divorce, and I think seeing it as a symptom of feelings and people not wanting to commit to something. I think the divorce rate going up is maybe where it should have been. I think it was artificially low in the past because we were fed this idea that people stay together forever and they find this true love and they love this person and they stay with them. When in reality, like I was saying before, there's those generations who didn't talk to each other, who didn't express those feelings. They worked in, this sort of contract, like you're the husband, you're the wife, we're working together and we're going to raise these children, and they can sit in silence and be miserable, or maybe they're happy. Like it depends on who that couple is. Like my grandparents, they met and they talked a couple times. He was a mechanic and he walked into the diner and said, and like put grease on her arm, and he said, "I'm going to marry you." And then they then they got married a few months later, and they stayed together and they had 6 kids. And but all of my grandma's siblings, they got married just as quickly, and they had terrible husbands they stayed with, and all their kids were alcoholics. And I think so. That's why I think, but they stayed together. They stayed together and they were miserable until their husband died. And I think these younger generations, we're seeing the divorce rate go up. And sure, they shouldn't have got married in the first place, but divorcing probably was the right situation for them. I think it's much rarer than we think it is to find someone that you're going to spend the rest of your life with. It's a big commitment, and I hope most people can find it, and that's where I'm at too, and it sounds like that's where you're at too. I think it's definitely optimal for a child to have both parents, or at least some sort of community around them. You look at other cultures around the world, you have a whole community raising them, as opposed to just relying on the 2 parents in that one family. You can have a small village that raises a whole child. You look at indigenous societies where everyone in the community took part in raising a child. And I think that's the most important element, whether that's our traditional system of marriage is one thing. And if it's another system, as long as that child has good people to look to as supports and role models, then I think you're doing the raising right.
Yeah. So what I would say to that is, it doesn't work. It doesn't work large scale, and it's not natural to humans to have a whole community that isn't necessarily the parents or the extended family raise the child. It's not natural, and it doesn't work large scale. So you can never have civilizations at the scale that we have at the moment if all families were raised in that kind of way.
Well, I would say the extended family is that community for a lot of people. I think that's what I point to. I think of those intergenerational families of immigrants who have grandparents and parents.
Yes.
And uncles and aunts.
So I'm with that. Like, I'm not against multi-generational households. It's actually a goal of mine. But it doesn't work the way, like the indigenous people, the way that they live their lives, that doesn't work large scale. It doesn't. You can't have the civilizations that we have doing that kind of living. And also, if you look at hunter-gatherers, our earliest evidence of hunter-gatherers were that they were monogamous. That it was husband and wife essentially who raised their child, did they have a community to help out? Of course. That's always been natural to humanity to have grandparents, aunts, and uncles help. And this is something that the West has lost. And it's because, in my opinion, the Industrial Revolution was a part of that. Additionally, you have cities that play another role in that, and neighborhoods and suburbs that play a role in that as well, because those are all things that have led to the dividing of family in the West. And so the cultures that you're referring to get some things right, but other things wrong, in that, they're not so much monogamous. And monogamy is a huge, huge factor in the longevity of a people and the success rate of a society as a whole, like how well they do. You never see any polygamous societies that are thriving. Never. It's like never happens. The three biggest empires in the world were all monogamous. The three biggest cultural forces in the world all had monogamous, all had monogamy and a family-based system, as opposed to this open community, which is something that like people like Osha talk about, right? I'm not sure if you've heard of Osha, the spiritual teacher.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm thinking of occupational safety.
No, he's a spiritual guru. He like took over a city in the United States, and anyway, he had some good teachings. But
like Wild Country, that
yeah. I mean, if you watch, like, I don't know him from that. I've watched a lot of his shit on my own, on like YouTube and stuff, and read a lot of his stuff. He's a very interesting guy, very smart guy. I don't agree with a lot of his beliefs, but anyway, he preached that as well, that you have to raise a child in a community, and they don't need a mother or a father necessarily. The community can be can be the mother and father. So, that idea doesn't work very well, and it's very confusing to the child. So the child needs to have strong family ties in order to have a healthy life. And this is where, marriage, as we understand it in the West, comes into play. But a lot of that has been lost because we have gotten rid of the family, and people, when they get married, they're not factoring in that they're not just marrying one person, but they're combining families. This is a huge thing people don't think about today, is that when you get married, you're not just marrying one person. You're bringing in
their family,
their whole family. And so are your parents compatible with their parents? Like, this sounds foreign to something that like the Westerners would think about, because we're like, oh, well, it's just us. No. This is why I feel this is a big reason why marriages haven't been doing the greatest here, is because we don't factor those things in.
I'll like to say to what you're saying. Well, I agree with the parental units that we have in Western society being a good thing. It's a good unit. It's very convenient. It's the way that we have set in our mind, and it's what I hope to achieve, and it's what, and I think it's what's worked. But the one point I'd like to say is that you said that the biggest societies have had this as their unit of society, basically, is that family unit. And I'm not an anthropologist, so I can't go back to every single part of it. I would kind of go back and say, like, look at ancient Greek and Roman culture, and it's a little skewed there how that worked. But I don't want to get too into it because I don't know enough to back up every claim. But one thing I want to say is that that sort of viewpoint where we see, like, well, this is what the West did, and the West has ruled over the world, and that means whatever we were doing was the right way to do it. Isn't the best way.
No. So hang on. Before you continue, let me clarify. I'm not saying just because we dominated the world. I'm saying if you compare the East to the West in their way of life, I much prefer Western lifestyle over Eastern lifestyle. And I'm a huge fan, by the way. I studied a lot of like Chinese history when I was in college. I love Chinese history. I think it's very fascinating. I love the Chinese culture, but I don't want to be Chinese, right? I don't want to live in the Chinese culture. I appreciate it. But my point was more so, most Westerners would agree that they love Are they or they would not want to live in any other kind of society? That was my main point. Not that it dominated, not that we're so strong, but the morals, the values, and the culture itself that was created from those three empires that took over were, I believe, the more important, the most important thing. And I think that's the main point that I'm focusing on.
Yeah, I don't think it helps that we didn't give indigenous cultures too much of a chance to.
We did.
To see how
we did. I mean, they were here for so long, right? And also, they were killing each other. So, I mean, they're not even. It's not a fair history that we give nowadays. So obviously, the West, the colonizers, if you will, took over. They were stronger. They were better. They were more equipped. They won. Cultures are survival of the fittest.
The Chinese societies.
Yeah, so they were smarter.
And
they were
the diseases on their side. Like I do not like that argument. I don't think
they were stronger. They were stronger. They were smarter. They were more technologically advanced.
Yeah, because they had world trade with the rest of the world.
Why didn't the Indians have that? What stopped the indigenous people from having that?
From having contact with
yeah, why didn't they build ships? Why didn't they go out and go to I mean, they could have went to the Pacific. They could have went out west as well. I mean, to the east. They could have started trade. Why didn't they do that?
Because they had everything they need right here. Like half the stuff we brought back.
They didn't have gunpowder. They couldn't defend themselves very well.
Yeah, they didn't have gunpowder. They didn't go to. This is I don't know what you're trying to get here. Europe got it from the fact that there was a landmass. It's a landmass attached to Asia. And
allegedly, the Indian
trade with the Muslim world and the Asian world, they were able to get all the scientific advancements like our number system, gunpowder, all these different.
Why didn't the indigenous people? I mean, but they didn't come up with their own. They didn't come up with their own their own mathematical system. They didn't come up with that.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, a lot of the stuff.
Absolutely did.
A lot of the stuff, and also I would say this too. So maybe I'm not aware of that, but what I would say is that they did cross over allegedly on an ice bridge, like an iceberg or whatever it's called, like an ice. There was an Iceland connecting
between
So I mean, they're why couldn't they then, just keep the travel up? I mean, come on,
because the ice bridge thawed hundreds and hundreds.
Well, why didn't they build a ship, man? Why didn't they build a ship?
The West was barely building ships.
Dude, I don't know. I mean, look at the Vikings, bro. Vikings were building ships long ago, and they sailed to America in the 4th century or some shit.
Yeah, from Greenland. Listen, if this conversation is going to indigenous people are inferior, that is not a conversation.
That's not. No, I'm not saying they're inferior. I'm not saying that they're inferior. Hang on. Let me clarify. Nobody's saying that they're inferior.
We should steer away from that
nobody's saying. Hang on. I don't think that any race is inferior to another race. But what I do believe is that cultures.
Leave it there. Let's leave it there. Let's leave it at the butt. Let's.
Well, first off, this is my show, so I can keep going if I like to. So and if you're gonna get triggered by it, I mean, I don't really care. I don't think that any race is inferior to another race. But the way cultures work is that it's like survival of the fittest, man. So if you have a stronger, more dominant culture, it will eventually take over the weaker culture. We're seeing this in America right now. The European American culture that once was is no longer because, well, now we have immigrants installing their cultures here, which, hey, they're winning, man. They're winning. They're more family oriented. Look at the Muslims, man. The Muslims are fucking crushing it in the United States, dude. They're over here evangelizing just by having children and just making. You go to Detroit, you go to Dearborn, Michigan. You can't even tell you're in the United States, man. Just so many Muslims there. It's badass. I'm not even against it. I'm really not. I'm all for if you're going to dominate like that, That's what's up. I mean, you obviously have some truth. You obviously are grounded in reality in some way if you're able to install your way of life. So it's not even like a knock at the Indian people that the Europeans were just a more dominant force at the time. It just is what it is. We're seeing it today. It's nothing new. It's nothing unique to the Indians. Americans are having their culture taken away from them by multiple cultures, and they deserve it. We deserve it. We're weak.
So if China comes in and takes over the U.S. and all of Western culture, it means they're right, and they've been doing
that. No,
right.
I never said that they're right. I never once said that they're right. I never once said that they were right. Are you not listening to me? I said that they're stronger, that they have a more solid base. Not that they're right, not that they're correct.
But someone being stronger doesn't necessarily mean they're doing things more correctly. It means they had more manpower. The circumstances were better. They had been having large-scale battles for a lot longer because they decided they wanted to have wars more often in Europe.
Or they had to defend themselves. It could be a lot of other reasons too, right? But no, my whole point is that cultures clash all the time. There's no such thing as this whole multiculturalism melting pot. Cultures will become diluted once you mix them in together. Cultures will die out. Cultures will emerge. Newer cultures will be birthed. Like this is just the way of the world. And so what happened to the indigenous people is nothing unique to the indigenous people. It happened to many of races that have probably been lost throughout history.
I think being on a different continent, separated from the rest of Europe, Africa, and Asia, does make some of a difference. And
what about the Aztecs, bro? What about the people in Canada? I mean, there were people in Canada. There were people in South America. They could have just had, there's a large landmass here, right? There's a large landmass. They could have been traveling as well. They could have been setting up trade routes. Who's to even say? I think that there's this interesting theory that I've recently heard about, that America was a cosmopolitan nation long before Christopher Columbus had sailed here. There's a lot of architecture to suggest that, which is very interesting.
Their own laws, they had their own agriculture.
But it isn't. But here's the thing: it isn't just the Native American. It was there were more than Native Americans here. So that goes along with the theory as well. It wasn't just Native American tribes. There were actual like cities and shit, like legitimate cities, legitimate government buildings and shit like that. Like there's theories that the government buildings that we use today were leftover, but they weren't just by the Native Americans. Like that's. And this is, I'm not saying this is true or not. This is part of that theory, though, that there was. Because Alexander the Great, he had people come to the United States as well, So who's to say that they didn't set up shit long ago? And the Vikings and other people, who's to say that they didn't stay here and it became, this became home to them in some way, So there's just a lot of history we don't know.
Yeah. Well, listen, this has gone in a direction I didn't want, which is just that. I don't know why we're arguing about indigenous peoples and the fact that Europeans came over and committed a genocide against them. I don't want to get into. I never wanted to get into that, and I don't like the eye roll. Like, yeah, it happened. They absolutely did systematically take their land, wipe them out, infect them.
We have a different view on history. We have a different view on history.
Their culture, like we're seeing in residential schools, they tried to wipe out any semblance of culture they had.
Yeah, I mean, this is what happens historically to every culture that gets taken out by a stronger culture.
Yeah, and
I see nothing wrong with it. This is just the way of the world.
The natural way of things doesn't mean it's the right.
I never said that it was right. I never said that it was right. I never said that it was right. I never said that it was godly. I never said that it's the correct way of doing things. I just said that this is the world. That's the world we live in. I accept reality for what it is.
Okay. One thing, really, the point I came on here for was that governments are needed. That's the thing I wanted to talk about. And sorry, we got into this digression here. And so I'm assuming that you're saying that that's true, that we need our government.
You will never not have a government. Yes.
Yeah, and that's actually what I came in here to talk about. Yeah, is the idea. I'm in law school right now, and one of the things I was looking at is the philosophy of law, and just the idea that we think of government as some completely separate entity, when in reality, government in any form, which is why it exists in any culture of any kind, whether it's a more formal one we have written with a constitution, or something more informal in a form that we may not view as much, exists because it reflects the social will of the people that exist in that society. And government needs to exist in that way because we need to enforce the group's will in some way. I don't think that you can have a group of people and not have it come together, whether it's a formalistic government with, the executive, legislative and judicial branches, or it's something more informal, something that we see as more informal, like indigenous peoples got ways of governance that relied on elders and talking through the community and coming up with decisions. Every single culture has some form of that, and I think we see government as like this very discrete entity. It's completely separate from us. We elect whatever our government is or something like that, but that's not what government is. It's an idea. It's a mechanism for our society to have some sense of stability and transparency as to what actions you do in your society will have, what effect they will have.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with everything you're saying pretty much. And the reason I brought this topic up is because there's a lot of anti-government on both parties. Right now, the Republicans are talking about getting rid of the FBI. The Democrats are talking about getting rid of the police, and also getting rid of the Department of Justice is coming out. All of these things, and I think it's a recipe for disaster when you want to start getting rid of your own government. Like, people don't understand how much the government is needed, and if the government wasn't here, there's going to be a fucking gang that takes over, and they don't even realize that. Like, have you not seen history? Like, have you not read history? Do you not see what's going on in Mexico right now with the cartels? I mean, the cartels have more power than the governments do. They go to war with the government, and it's because
the fact is that with the government, you might hate it, you might hate whatever power it has, you may hate whoever's in power, but ultimately, it's supposed to express the will of the people, and have some level of accountability to our society. A large gang, or if just Jeff Bezos decides to have a private military force, or whatever, think about that sort of situation. They have no accountability to you. Why would they do anything you say? And that's why I can't get behind people who are super duper libertarian and they're like, we don't need government for anything. It's like, if you have a society of people who get together and collaborate in any meaningful way to create a society, you have government.
Yes.
And what you don't have a problem with government, you have a problem with the current government.
Yep.
And you have a problem with, crony capitalism. You have a problem with the not feeling represented. And those are all valid feelings. But throwing the baby out with the bathwater and having private individuals exert their force on you and having no recourse to the rest of society that's not the answer. That's a dystopia.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It really is. Like, and this is something, you're actually one of the first people that I've spoken to on this particular topic, because this isn't the first time I've spoken on this topic, that has agreed with me. Usually people are like, oh, are you a government drone? Are you a Fed? Why do you love the government? I mean, look at what they're doing. And it's like, can governments become corrupt? Yes, I think we know that from history, and I think we can see that right now, that governments can become corrupt. But is it that the government's in itself bad? No, because the government is a tool. and it's a tool that is used by the people, as you call it, the will of the people. And I would actually go a step further and say it's the morality of the people that
You're
determine.
absolutely right, and legal philosophers will back you up on that being an exertion. Law is an exertion of the of society's morality.
Yes,
It doesn't square 1-to-1, but it's supposed to be. That's what it's always been supposed to reflect.
100%. And this is why governments become corrupt, is because the society's morality is lessened. The standard of, the moral standard has dropped. And then once the moral standard drops, well, then your government becomes more corrupt because they can get away with more evil things. It's very simple. Like, it's just, the way I look at it is this. I feel like the government is an external manifestation of our internal worlds. That's all they are. And so we like, if you want to see a change in the government, the best thing that you can do as an individual is see where you're super dependent on the government and see where maybe you're corrupted, and then fix your inner world and focus on your local communities. Because in the United States, we have a beautiful, legal system. The checks and balances we have, it does work and it can work, but it really has to be used. And people don't like to use their power. It's like, do people even want to have free will? That's a whole other discussion to have. But like, what are you doing in your
democracy and the rule of law are incredibly fragile things, and they're things that we take for granted, especially the way that U.S. history is taught, where you look at it as an almost godly act that this Enlightenment era philosophy of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and these truths are self-evident. We see it as just this natural progression that democracy exists and that it was going to exist. But it's so incredibly fragile and such a precious thing. And like you're saying, these checks and balances, they only exist if we choose to make sure they stay enforced.
Right.
Law is only words written on a piece of paper unless the actions of society back them up.
And I want to add this really quick.
Starts to crumble. And as soon as that starts to crumble, that's when society starts to break down.
Facts. And I want to add this to what you just said about the piece of paper. People don't understand, man, that piece of paper literally means nothing unless the collective believe that it has value.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's like, so you have to really have a strong inner constitution to have a good government. And if you don't have that on a large scale, your government's going to fucking suck. And by the way, I'm not a fan of democracy. I don't think that democracy is a good system whatsoever, but I do like the way our system is essentially set up. Like, it's become more democratic over the years, especially because of Lyndon B. Johnson. I'm sure you're aware of this, but he changed the Senate entirely, allowing the people to vote for senators as opposed to the traditional way, which was the House of Representatives voted on who the senators were up until LBJ. So I think that becoming more democratic actually introduces more problems than it solves. Because I don't think that the average citizen should vote.
Sorry, I'll let you finish.
You're all good. I don't think that the average citizen should vote. I think Winston Churchill has a very, very good quote, and that is, the biggest argument against democracy is having a conversation with the average voter for 5 minutes.
One thing I wanted to mention, which I think is very close to what you're talking about, is the function of the judicial branch of government.
Mm-hmm.
You have democracy in the executive and the legislative branch, when Congress and the president, right, and Senate. But the Supreme Court is they're not elected. They're appointed. They're appointed by a democratically elected person, but they stay in for life. And they can't get voted out if you don't like their decision.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, it's there's some hijinks going on now in the U.S., especially. There's some the Supreme Court has relied for its entire history, with the great power it has to declare, any law, like to be the highest court in the land, and to be able to declare any law that's passed by democratically elected representatives, they're allowed to strike it down for being unconstitutional. And where do they get their legitimacy for doing that if it's not from being voted in by voters? They do it by careful reasoning that they have to write out. They have to give very, very good reasoning and things that are logically consistent. So you can look at those decisions, and maybe you don't completely agree with the outcome of that decision, but you can at least look at the logic they used and say, you know what? It's been consistent, and I understand this view that they have, and they're a check and balance, because you can have tyranny of the majority putting down a law that breaks people's constitutional protections, and you go in and you need to have someone who can say, maybe you like this law because you're a congressperson who needed to get voted in, so you made this terrible law that sounds good to your voters, and you don't care about the minority of people who are affected by this law greatly, because they'll win points with the majority. Someone needs to go in and say, this is unconstitutional, and that's what the Supreme Court does. And right now, that's where there's all this controversy. There's a reason why it's a big thing to turn over Roe v. Wade and things like that, whether you agree with the abortion or not. The fact is that there was a right which people based there was a constitutional right that was recognized for decades, and people, based their livelihoods on it. They based the way they went about their lives and interactions with other people, and overnight that crumbled, and now there's 50 different ways to do it in the country, and that uncertainty is not good. And then you see in the majority's decision, most of the conservative majority, they're like, we're stopping at this law. We just don't think that the right to abortion is in the right to privacy in the Constitution. We don't think those two should be connected. But then you have Clarence Thomas saying, no, some other rights are on the chopping block too. Other things that aren't strictly enumerated in the Constitution that we've had for a long time, these rights that have become recognized, they could be on the chopping block too, and I don't mind, which is ironic coming from Clarence Thomas, because one of the not enumerated rights in the Constitution that the Supreme Court came to recognize was the right for interracial marriage. Because we decided it's not the government's place to make decisions on that. People should be free to do that. Clarence Thomas is a black man married to a white woman, and he's saying, well, that right's not in the Constitution, so if we decided,
hang on. Maybe you can educate me here, but
yeah,
whenever was it illegal in the United States for you to be married to somebody that isn't your same race?
Oh God, that was around the. I'm from Canada. I'm just learning U.S. law now.
So was there ever a time when
there was
a European couldn't marry an Indian?
I would have to look it up.
Okay. Yeah, because maybe you know something I don't, but as far as I know, I don't recall there ever being a time where like a white person or a European person couldn't marry an Indian or, a Hispanic, or maybe blacks would be a little bit different since they were enslaved, but there were black slave owners too.
There was a time where indigenous people couldn't marry white people.
But is it in the Constitution that said that ever?
It wasn't in the Constitution doesn't give restrictions, but they recognize that the Constitution, even though it doesn't directly out and say it, part of the Constitution would cover the fact that people are free to marry who they choose. just like, freedom is, it's like,
So basically, you have to
that might be
stretch.
their right to your right to privacy.
Well, so then you just have to spread. You'd have to stretch definitions in order to fit that narrative. Then, is what you're saying. And I'm not trying to say it in like a disparaging way, but you would have to stretch the interpretation in order for it to cover marriage, is what you're saying. You'd have to look at it from a certain lens to say that marriage.
You got to remember that the Constitution is not a very long document. And each amendment is not that long, so there's so many laws and rules that all have to be based on it, and they all have to confer with the Constitution. And there's different viewpoints to read it in. Some people want to see the Constitution as a living document where there's views and truths in it that are contained by, the Bill of Rights, say. And it's like, maybe it doesn't square off one-to-one with this. Think like the right to unreasonable search and seizure, which extends to people's cars. And cars didn't exist when the Constitution was drafted and the Bill of Rights was made. But guess what? It follows that if your person or if your house shouldn't be unreasonably searched, then a car shouldn't be as well.
Yeah, but let me ask you this: Do you know if it was illegal to randomly search a horse and buggy?
I don't know if that ever came.
Because the reason I asked that then is because then you would already have legal and logical precedent for the vehicle to be included under that amendment in the future. So, so I feel like there's just a lot of things that
I think a better example of this this changing thing is say like the right to free speech. When it's like right to free speech, where in the past it's like, well, how do you get your speech out there? Is it just speaking, standing on a street corner, you're allowed to say whatever you want? Well, in our society today, anyone, whether they're published or, they don't have to get published somewhere, they don't have access to a printing press, they can get on their phone and type whatever they want on the internet and speak to thousands of people. And it's like, so, okay, does freedom of speech still apply in that arena? And, we've decided that, yeah, it does to an, obviously like Twitter owns Twitter and they can ban things and we can't the Constitution can't do anything because Twitter's not the government. The government owned Twitter, then.
Well, it's kind of a dicey situation with Twitter and Facebook and other social media platforms, because you could make the argument logically that the government does have a stake in these companies due to subsidizing.
That's a good argument, and I would love to see that play out, because I think there's something there, especially when the government helped set up the structure of the internet, right? In the beginning, anyway.
Yeah, it's a lot of gray area when it comes to Facebook, Twitter, and social media, because one end you want to say that they're private companies, but on the other end, it's like, are they though? I mean, are they really private companies? I mean, the government's involved. I mean, now Facebook is working hand in glove with governments for elections, right?
Yeah.
As is Twitter. And you can go down this rabbit hole that DARPA has always been a part of Facebook, and DARPA is an arm of the military industrial complex, which is obviously a part of the government for, civilian monitoring, if you want to go down that rabbit hole. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that we could make the arguments for, that those companies aren't necessarily private, therefore free speech should apply to them. But then we also have to have this conversation as a society. Do we really want to allow free speech? I think that a lot of people are coming to the terms with the fact that they may not agree with free speech, whether they realize that or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I think we're seeing right now it makes me really sad. Like, as someone who is passionate and trying to study the law, seeing the Supreme Court making these decisions that are pretty inconsistent with each other in a lot of ways. And they do have if you read Clarence Thomas's part of that Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health, if you go in and just read his reasoning and you read what he says he wants to do next, he has an agenda, and that should never be the role of a justice who's supposed to be impartial and just be applying what the Constitution is supposed to say. And there's different philosophies on how people want to apply the Constitution. Are you an originalist who believes that it should only apply to things that the founders believed, and you try and find some historical precedent? Or do you think it's a living tree that's supposed to follow what the realities of our current situation are? There's a reason I don't like the originalist viewpoint, which is if you read the reasoning again in some of those recent decisions, they pick historical examples from wherever they want, and then you'll see Sotomayor's rebuttal saying, well, here's a bunch of other historical times where the exact opposite's true. You can kind of cherry pick whatever you want from back in the 1700s and the 1500s and back in our society and say this is how it used to be.
But one of them has to be right. But ultimately, so there has to be truth in what they're saying. Somebody has to be right. But there is a degree of belief, as we've discussed already. So nobody can be totally impartial, especially when you're in a position like that. Obviously, your philosophy and your religion is going to influence the way you view the world. And the way that you view the world will determine what you deem to be acceptable and not acceptable. And those things that are deemed not acceptable or acceptable will probably fit into your legal framework as well as a judge. So I don't think that you can be impartial. So that's why you see the contradictions between, the liberal and the conservative judges. But I don't know if he just got out of here or what, but it was all good. It was a good convo. If you don't learn from the past comes around again and burns you. Elders have brain, Jesus, even Gen Z claimers can't see the age problem. What are you talking about? Let's see here. Old and face memory loss, shit clearance, should be retired. Maybe not. I mean, there's a lot of young people who suffer from memory loss as well. It's becoming more common. Just because you're old doesn't mean that you are mentally not there. You can still. I've met plenty of people that are extremely sharp, that are old. The kids are forgetting and not being reached. Well, it's the parents' fault. There is an age problem. I don't think so. I believe you want to have older people in charge of the power dynamics in a society. They're wiser, and they should be you can be very intelligent and young, but if you're very intelligent and wise and have experience, I think that's much better for leadership than just a lot of intelligence and minimal experience. Let's argue that's why don't have an age limit. Yeah, old means you are cognitively declining. You can be, yes, and I don't know that that's literally what old means. The generation saves the United States along with half the world, so learn from it. Okay. Age max for Congress and SCOTUS. I don't know. Well, we are talking 70 and 80-year-olds. Yeah, and I mean, I've met some really sharp 70 or 80-year-olds too. Like, very sharp, very aware of what's going on. Are they necessarily as sharp as they were at 25? No, but what they lack in their sharpness, they make up for in their wisdom and their experience. So it's a trade-off. Now, should we have somebody like Joe Biden be in office? Probably not. Like, you should have to probably take a cognitive test to run for office to check out your mental capacity, or capability rather. And maybe even, I don't know. Did you evaluate them, or are you just guessing? What are you talking about? Did I evaluate who? So you don't feel age is a problem. People that think old is a problem. I don't understand your question. Let me read it again. So you don't feel age is the problem. People that think old is a problem. So are you saying like people that have old ways of thinking? What? Evaluate Biden? Yeah, I mean, you can just hear in his incoherent speaking. You think Biden is with it? No, definitely not. I mean, objectively, it's obvious to anybody with eyes. Like people that are with earlier times. Yeah, I don't necessarily think being traditional, or not even traditional, but having an old framework is a bad thing. It can be more grounded in reality, because what lasts longest and forever is truth. What happened with Wells Fargo? They are banning sex workers' accounts, and I think that that's very based of them. Exactly. But he did not do much when he was younger either. Yeah. Yes. Old ways of thinking. That's what I mean. Like Clarence thinks back in the day, like gay rights. Yeah. Good for him. He's based. He gets it. You think it's old way of thinking, and other people realize that it's grounded in reality. So that's why I said, I mean, the things that you would call old are going to be not always, but can be the most grounded in reality. And that's why you call them old, is because they're long lasting. Thoughts that are long lasting have a lot of truth in them. Wells Fargo's did mounts of bankruptcy attacks in the 2007 and 2008. Interesting. What's your question? Why come they push for retirement age to be 65, 70 and the regular citizens, but they work until 100? Because Social Security is a scam. Well, I meant other rights with newer times. Just because newer times and newer rights don't mean that those rights are grounded in reality. Married is better as long as there is nothing nefarious is happening. Yeah. They said what? They said did one thing and did another with taking people's homes. Yeah, I know. And now they're giving away homes to Latinos and, blacks. So it's like with no interest. Oh, my grasshopper is back. Okay. They did it to me. Damn. What? Yeah, look it up. Bank of America is giving out free loans to blacks and Latinos. Fact. Back in 2007. Why'd you take a subprime loan? Why'd you take a varied subprime loan? A varying subprime loan. Yep, that's racist. But they push for regular citizens to work until 65, but they get to work till 100. That's not fair. You can work until you're 100. Who's saying that you can't work until you're 100? Your argument is making no sense. You're saying that people can't get their Social Security until 65. Then it was a regular loan. Gotcha. And why be dependent on your Social Security anyway? I don't even think that Social Security will be around by the time I'm of age. They need to be enjoying their grand and grandkids, period. You can be enjoying your great-grandkids right now, even with working a job. Like, you don't need to be retired to enjoy them. Retirement is a relatively new thing. They need to be enjoy life, chill out. You can enjoy life and work. Why do you need a vacation? Vacation's also a relatively new thing. Got my words all mixed up. I'm too tired here. You retire at 70 and you can work until you can't work. You get a tax benefit. Yeah, I mean, going to the sunset. I watch the sunset almost every night, and I'm not retired. I don't know that I would ever be quote-unquote retired either. I mean, a lot of people who retire, from what I've seen in my life, they die quickly. My dad's friend retired. See, exactly. That's so funny that he said that. I mean, it's not funny, but you get it. We need to have an age max to join. Yeah, I would rather work and vacation yearly rather than work till retirement. I mean, that's a way to do it, right? That's a way to do it too. Why are you promoting liberal ideology, hyperinflation, negative 401ks, housing crisis every time? I think you're new here, buddy. I speak out against liberal ideology a lot. I'm not liberal, not conservative, not Republican, not Democrat, not libertarian. So you got to specify what you're talking about. It doesn't like you are doing that. Yeah. So you don't think having old people making rules is a problem? Not at all. Not at all. I don't think that's a problem at all. Why is that a problem? The only reason that's a problem is if you want to rebel. If you want to be rebellious and break tradition. Me either. I don't claim party, but we should have a max. I think that there should be an age limit to join. I don't mean you, but we, the chat, because it's far left-leaning, a.k.a. Grasshopper and her friends. Okay. Yeah, I mean, come on, we're on TikTok. What do you expect? The problem is if they are bought and influenced by some money is wrong. Yeah, and this is where I think a monarchy would be a better system. It's a problem because their values aren't the same as today's generation. And their values could be better than today's generation. They could be steering today's generation into what is reality. If you look at how people age and their political views change, the older a person gets, the more right-leaning they become. Pharma is a huge being paid for. Yeah, fact. And a lot of Republicans are paid off by Big Pharma. Clarence is thinking about overturning Loving in Virginia, even though he is black and white. I don't even know what that means, but okay. Is that all about the gay marriage thing? Thank God. Like I said, he ain't clear thinking. No, I think that you're the one not clear thinking in that instance. If you're comparing interracial marriage to gay marriage, two different things. Interracial marriage between a man and a woman, you can still have a legitimate marriage and make babies. A GAY marriage, what do you get out of it? I'm 33, Russian Jew in Canada. We don't have 401ks. But you own the banks, don't you? And are you trying to pull another one of your Bolshevik revolutions over in Canada? Eh? All right, this is probably going to be my last guest and I'm out of here. Hey, what's going on?
I'm doing fine.
Good.
How about you?
Doing well. What do you want to talk
Yeah,
about?
it's having interesting. The first topic is a little interesting.
Okay.
I feel like people want America to be falling apart because if it really wasn't, then their feelings wouldn't be validated. I don't think America's falling apart. I think it's far from it. I think society, I guess, is a little bit fractured, but I think eventually, right, it's gonna probably self-correct, like it usually does. Because, like, I think in the '60s and '70s, right, we felt like like there was like a silent majority. There was a bunch of like hippies, and I feel like right now, like the silent majority are the hippies, right? But it's like hippies on the left and right. Like when I say hippies, I mean like radicals, right? And I feel like those people want America to be falling apart because it would validate their sort of radical beliefs.
So it sounds like you have no argument. You just are basing it on your criticism of people who believe America's falling apart, which is feelings.
I wouldn't say it's feelings because there's genuinely like things like I would say healthcare, housing.
So healthcare is doing better in America. That's why we have.
No. I think these sort of radical beliefs are couched in some level of good criticisms about America.
So why do you think America's not falling apart?
Because we've been through way worse and
Explain.
come out like united. Like the Civil War, we've literally been through a civil war. Like America is not gonna fall apart because like people think trans people are gonna like ruin their kids or whatever. Like there's these sort of cultural wars where people think like the opposite side is a crazy like lunatic. Like that's just not gonna be the case.
Do you know that that's like a part of how the Civil War started in the first place was culture wars?
No, it was not cultural.
Yeah, it was. There was a different culture in the North than there was in the South. That was a factor. No, I'm not. No, I'm not at all. What I'm saying is that if you look at it, the Civil War just didn't happen overnight, man. It was leading up for years and years and years. And so there are many factors that played into the full-blown war. And one of those factors that contributed to it was the cultural war that was taking place between the South and the West.
I would say not Southwest, North and South, but I know what you mean. But like that culture is steeped in like economic like divisions. The industrialized North versus the slave South.
And so look at and hang on really quick. You brought up another good point. We have another parallel between the Civil War then and now, which is what? We have people who are extremely anti-capitalist, and we have people who are extreme. Hang on. No, it isn't actually. Most college universities, it isn't. If you look at all the major economists, they support modern monetary theory, which is just infinitely printing.
No, they don't. Wait, no,
they do. I'm not lying. I'm not lying. If you do, I'm not lying. If you would just listen. All right. Ben Bernanke. I mean, if you look at the head of the Federal Reserve, they're all for MMT. If you look at the people who are controlling the economy, they are all for MMT. Fact.
Janet Yellen is for MMT.
The people who are majorly that are have the most control in the economy, the large majority of them, the ones that are really pulling the strings, are for MMT. Why do you think we have massive?
Now you're getting really conspiratorial. Like
I'm not. This is just true. If you listen to, dude, this is just true.
I do. I've listened to what you said, right? You said you went from people who control the Federal Reserve, right? I asked you, Ben Bernanke and Janet Yellen support MMT, and then you sort of revised that and said the people who really control it. I'm like, what do you mean?
I never said really control it. Now you're misconstruing what I said. I said that most people that have power in the Federal Reserve are in line with MMT. So would that include Ben Bernanke, Janet Yellen? I would say yes, based on their economic, based on what they're, pushing out. But my point is that there is a parallel between the industrial West and the industrial North and the agricultural South, in that big cities are experiencing a surge of socialism and communism amongst the people. That's key. Amongst the people. And then you have rural areas in Midwestern America that are more so capitalistic. And so you have this economic divide that's taking place. You have a cultural divide that's taking place. So there's parallels.
No, there isn't parallels. You're very, very much like exaggerating the power communists have in the city, and
I'm not exaggerating it.
overly stating the power of business-oriented people in like the Midwest. Like the Midwest is very protectionist, which is anti-business, right? And in rural areas, right, the reason why housing is so expensive, right, is because they prioritize homeowners, landowners that would completely run contrary to what like communists believe that land.
So that's why I'm saying you're not listening to me. I said the people are the driving force of what governments will do. And so what we're seeing in bigger cities, primarily liberal cities, and by the way, I'm not a liberal, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a conservative, I'm not a libertarian. I'm just somebody who wants to follow truth, right? I would much prefer a monarchy. I would much prefer the unification of church and state. If you just wanted to know my perspective and where I'm coming from, so that way you understand I'm not impartial. That I'm not partial. That I'm not
transparent with what I believe in. I'm a liberal, so
okay. So that way I'm showing you that I'm not partial to communism or capital. Like, I'm just trying to look at it from an objective point of view. And most universities push a Marxist ideology. This is true. I went to a really good university here in the state that I live in. It's like one of the best universities in the state. And it was primarily Marxist indoctrination from a lot of different classes. Another college I went to, similar thing with the Marxist ideology. This is true upon many university campuses. And most people would agree that they're most left-leaning. And I mean, there are surveys that even come out. There are surveys that have even come out stating that most professors are all left-leaning. And now, if you go to like Ivy League schools, I know it doesn't. I know it doesn't. That's not my argument. Just listen. I'm not saying that they're the same thing, dude. Like, I'm sure you're smarter than this. That's not my point. Just because you're left-leaning doesn't mean you're Marxist. The point is that universities are by and large left-leaning, which means the radicals in the universities will be pushing socialism and Marxism and communism. Therefore, when you get radicalized in college, you're going to be radicalized for the extreme left. And so my argument then is that we are seeing a rise of communism, and we're seeing people fighting against that in the way that they appreciate capitalism. So that's my whole point, is that there are parallels in the economic divide between cultures in the United States. Maybe it's not as clearly defined as it was during the first Civil War, but it is there.
Okay. So, do you know what this also parallels? Like, it parallels to me the New Left movement in the 60s and 70s, and how more like the hippie movement specifically.
I agree.
I don't think communism is going to be something that is really going to be instituted in America anytime soon or at all, right?
That's not my argument. That's never been my argument, by the way. That's never been my argument.
You're saying, okay, wait, just let me finish what I'm trying to say. I'm saying these ideas are as popular right now, right? And they're probably going to eventually die down, like it did last time, right? And the assumption that you're making here is that there's a setup for a civil war in the future. America's falling apart, right? You're trying to make these sort of parallels. I don't think that's just going to be. I'm waiting
for your actual rebuttal. I'm giving you like actual logical arguments, and all I'm hearing from you is that I don't feel it's the same. I'm showing you parallels. I'm showing you parallels. I'm showing you logical parallels between the first Civil War and the lead up to a new Civil War potentially. And I'm not hearing anything to accurately rebut those.
I'll make it snappy. What is it? I think it's not going to happen because the ideas you're trying to attempt to connect to the Civil War just aren't the same. right? Like the war for the Civil War was primarily economic. But what you're trying to say is right now the new Civil War will be more ideological. And
No, that's not what I'm saying, dude. That's not what I'm saying. You have to be smarter than this. And I mean that with love. I'm not trying to be a dick. But come on, dude. Like, what I'm telling you is that the first Civil War, there were many factors that contributed to the actual get out the guns and bang, bang. There were many things that led up to it.
Right.
One of the things that led up to it was a cultural difference between the way of life in the South and the way of, hang on. No. I'm trying to explain this to you again because you don't seem to understand what I'm saying.
Okay, just you can go on, but like, let me just ask this one question. Okay, would you say the primary driver of this war was economic?
No, I think that there were many other forces at play. I would go as farther to say that the main driving force was the economy a driving force. It was a contributing factor. What I think the biggest driving force was in the Civil War was spiritual, was morality. And I think that this is the same thing which we're facing now. I think that all wars come down to spiritual, come down to the spirit. They're beyond the material. Wars are beyond the material. They can be, they can appear to be economical. They can appear to be cultural. They can appear to be many things. But the root of it all is spiritual, in my worldview, in my opinion.
Okay. Okay. So what was wrong with my summation? Because I was not saying, because I said the what you're trying to say that the second Civil War is going to be more ideological than economic.
Because I don't think it's ideological. I think it's a multiple layer. And so once again, the economy is going to play a role in it. The economy will play a role in it. It'll play a huge role in it because money dictates the way of life for society on a large scale. How money flows dictates societal structures. It really does in a lot of ways. So the economy will play a role in it. The cultural beliefs will play a role in it. Of course they will. There will be many other factors as well that contribute to the Civil War. That's my whole point. It's not one thing. It's a multifaceted problem. And it's a slow build. It's not going to happen overnight. Neither did the first Civil War.
It's going to happen.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's going to happen in my lifetime, but I don't know when.
Okay. So that's okay. You're saying there's a confluence of different sort of like factors to play into this.
Yes, and that's all wars, by the way.
So I would just say that the sort of factors you listed, I don't think are enough to create a war. I think our society broadly is too civilized to attempt at a civil war.
Have you looked at human history at all? We've had plenty of civilized societies.
Are they?
Yeah, man.
Would you think pre-World War II society was civilized?
Yeah, for sure.
With monarchies, with assassinations, with political instability.
What are you talking about? Political instability has gone nowhere. These arguments suck. The political instability will always exist because governments come and go, just like seasons.
Do you think the American government is in a state of instability?
It is fact. It is.
No, it's not a fact.
It is a fact.
The fact that a sitting president tried to deny the election, and yet the election still went through, and senators and Congress still passed it through. The vice president of the said president who denied the election still authorized it. Right? Our regime is incredibly stable. Right?
It's not. It's in a very precarious state. It's in a very precarious state.
That's different than in a state of instability.
No, it isn't actually, dude. It isn't. It means that it's like very. It could go any moment. Not really any moment,
It couldn't
but
go. It couldn't go any moment. You have such a low faith in America. Like,
No,
it's
I
crazy.
don't actually. I don't. You don't even know my world. You don't even understand where I'm coming from, really.
You're a monarchist. You are antithetical to America.
No, I think that America would run much better with a monarchy.
Do you think it's antithetical to the American spirit?
No, I don't.
We the people doesn't go like in the opposite direction of a sole monarch.
You're always going to have a ruler, are you not?
The ruler is picked by the people, so it's not really
Monarchs,
a ruler. In the,
monarchs are picked by the people too. At first,
no, it isn't. It's picked by the
it
church.
is, and the people determine whether or not they're going to believe in the church.
Do you think every person in America is in the church?
No.
Okay, then it isn't the people. You can't just say that.
Well, you just made a totally stupid analogy, dude. That makes no sense to what we were just talking about. The people, what I'm saying is that the people ultimately are determining who they want to lead them. When it comes down to it, the morality and the will of the people,
Go ahead.
the morality and the will of the people determine their government.
Go ahead. Wait, I couldn't hear you.
I said the morality and the will of the people determine their government.
Yeah, that's how America functions right now.
And that's how every government functions. This is like a basic
No, it
theory.
doesn't. No,
Yes,
no.
it is. You don't know what you're talking about.
In a
You
fascist
don't. You
government,
literally
that's how
don't know what you're talking about.
You're literally saying a monarchy represents the people. No,
It
doesn't.
does. You have no clue. You literally have no clue what you're talking about. Literally.
Wait, okay. So just to summarize it, right? You're saying a monarchy represents the people. In the same way,
what I am
a
saying,
representative voted by the people who represent the people.
that's never been my argument.
Okay, then what is your argument? What are you trying to say? You're trying to say.
I'll say it again. I'll say it again for you. Governments are made by the morality and the will of the people.
If no, dependent upon if the people can vote on these people.
That's never what I said.
But you're a monarchist. That would like.
What I am saying, listen to me, I am saying the morality and the will of the people determine the government.
Okay, so so right now what you're saying is if there was a monarchy, the people would choose it.
Yes.
Okay, then how? Okay, you're a monarchist, and like it would work better for America. Why would Americans want a monarchy?
Well, they already want a strong ruler. We saw that with Trump, and now we saw that with we're seeing that right now with the ever-growing presence of the government. In many facets of our lives, people want a strong government that has authoritarian powers, whether they realize it or not.
People want it, or are you talking about a fringe people?
No,
Because
I'm
even
speaking.
Trump
No,
supporters-
dude, listen
but
to
they're not
me,
willing to think- they're
dude.
not willing to
Okay,
think
first
Trump
off, get out of your whole liberal mindset, bro. Just listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth, because I know this is like very uncommon for you to hear. Like, I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not a Biden supporter. I think Trump is an idiot. I don't think Trump's an idiot, actually. I think he's
no. I was literally talking about Trump supporters I've talked to personally. Know that they wouldn't allow Trump to go for a third term, right?
Okay, that's not the point I'm making here, dude. The point I'm making is this.
The point you're making is that people want a strong leader that never is deposed of or is taken out.
No, that's not my point either. My point is this. People in America have become so dependent upon institutions, whether they be private or public, i.e., corporate or government, that they want to see more government interference in their life, more of an authoritarian regime than not. That is what the people are wanting in America, whether they realize it or not.
Whether they realize it or not.
Yes.
Is this just like like they're unconsciously they want this?
Some of them are not aware of what they're doing.
Okay, then what would you say about, let's say, those who oppose a vaccine mandate?
What about them?
You said that these people want the government to be in their lives more, but they strongly oppose the government mandating a vaccine, which more or less is a net benefit to most of society and people. Of course. A monarchist is also anti-vax. How am I not surprised?
Listen to this, dude. You have like an IQ of 20 and you're trying to like sound smart. So listen.
Says the guy who calls monarchies representative of people.
You don't even understand governmental theory. You don't even understand political science at all. You don't even understand legal theory, dude.
Monarchies represent the people.
Says the dude. You don't even know what a monarchy is. It sounds like.
And I will just keep on repeating that idiotic belief.
Yeah, I know because you suck at debating. Your IQ is like 30.
I'm sure.
And all you can use is rhetoric right now because you are so retarded.
Colleges to the fact that we're going to go into a civil war.
Dude, you it's all good, man. You're using rhetoric. Yeah, it's all good. Get out of here.
You couldn't handle it.
Oh my God. Do you wear a mask when you drive alone? He definitely does. Is he serious? The level of delusion is host is projecting. Okay. You know, it's all good. Maybe I wasn't explaining myself well enough, but I don't think that was the issue. I think I was being very clear. Last person I spoke to seemed to get it. I do just trigger quit. What? Let's see. And I mean, come on. He said that the V word was a good thing. You literally said monarchy represents the people. They literally have to. The government represents the people. Dumb. That's literally what the government is. Trump is the old oligarchy fighting against the new world oligarchy. Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to put it, I suppose. You are a Trump supporter? No. How did the United States come about? What were they running away from? Well, I don't know what they were really running away from because they ended up instituting similar laws here in the United States. You do know that, right? Like, you had to have a license to preach. And if you didn't have a license to preach in certain colonies, you were beaten and imprisoned. So if you're going to make the religious argument, like the colonizers here in the United States weren't really pro free religion to begin with. That was like an elite theory. That was like an elite belief by the founding fathers who were allegedly Freemasons. So the people didn't necessarily believe in the freedom of religion. They just wanted to be able to practice their religion and not let other people practice what religions they wanted to. It was a business venture. Europe knew the America had a population. I think that they knew that too, man. But you literally have no clue what you're talking about. Learn what it says about monarchies. What does it say about monarchies? Educate me. Uh-oh, we got a free thinker. Yeah, I know, right? The Bermuda Triangle. What about the Bermuda Triangle? So, I mean, American, the Europeans that came, and also, let me throw this in there. The French started sending prisoners to America to help colonize it. They said, if you marry a prostitute and you move to the United States in the South, you'll be free. We'll give you land. Fact. Not in this day and age. What do you mean? So you still don't believe there should be an age max, right? There's an age limit, but no max. Yeah, I'm not really opposed to max. I mean, why do you keep coming back to this? Are you some sort of bot? Are you like a bot for like ageism or some shit? That'd be the first I've ever heard of that. All right. So I'm just looking back to see. Somebody said monarchy is literally a cult. Monarchy political systems based upon the undivided sovereignty or rule of a single person. Yeah. Different royalty was traded with the American natives. The New World was known of a long ago. Yeah, I mean, I think that there might be a lot of things that we don't know about America. It's not ageism to think older folks should relax. Okay. All right. Well, I'm out of here, guys. MOT Media, everything. Much love. Peace.